our clients are making decisions based on real estate agents telling them that they need 4 bedrooms, 3 garages, 5 bathrooms, 50 living areas and 500 downlights.
What are we doing? Like even around where I'm living, I'm sure it's the same where you are too. There's houses that are like, they were only built like, what, 10 years ago? They're gone.
Yeah, everyone bangs on about sustainability and helping the planet.
Yeah.
And yet we have volume builders building tens of thousands of homes a year that are designed to last 15 to 30 years.
It's wild, eh?
I want to demonstrate to people that smaller is better, that less is more, and we need to disconnect to reconnect. G'day guys, welcome back to another episode of Level Up. We are back in the recording studio, or the office, this afternoon, because the guest we have with us is in another part of Australia, but I'm super pumped about this one. We have got some cracking questions coming your way, which I have some pretty strong opinions on, and I know my guest does as well. So we're going to open up a few cans of worms, I think, today with today's conversation. The guest we've got with us today, I just want to go back a little bit before I tell you who it is, because he actually started as a mechanic and now is running David Belle Design, is a passive house designer, has built his own home and loves old cars. Got a couple of old cars in the garage. So massive welcome to David from David Belle Design. How are you, mate?
Good, mate. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No, mate, look, social media is a very powerful tool for some very good reasons. It's also powerful for some bad reasons, but the good reasons are that I get to meet and interact with great people like yourself. So we've been having a bit of a, chat on social media for, I was just having a look before, like over 18 months now. And so it's powerful when you connect with people that have similar passions or interests and those types of things. So thanks for reaching out to start with, and finally we get to actually have a chat face to face.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's good that we can do this. I really wanted to get up there and check out the shed. When I heard that you had like that, I think it was I don't know how many horsepower it had, but there was a naturally aspirated Holden up there, I think.
Oh, I had a Camaro. I sold my Camaro probably 12 months ago, but I had a 68 Camaro with a 598 big block, made 1,340 horsepower aspirated.
Yeah, that's wild. That's like, I know what goes in to get that horsepower naturally aspirated, and that's like a lot. Oh, mate, it was
actually, believe it or not, like I could talk all days about the car thing, but it wasn't actually like most engines with that sort of amount of horsepower, a fair bit of maintenance, but to be honest, like it was tamed back a little bit. So it was actually built to take 600 NOS on top of that.
Wow.
And I never got the opportunity to put the NOS on it, but it didn't really take too much maintenance. But I love the cars, mate. And I don't know about you, but personally, I think you can't beat a high revving, naturally aspirated car. Like it just beats everything.
They are fun. I think I showed you a photo ages ago, an XY Falcon. I'm a Ford guy. I'm not like, I like Holdens and stuff. I actually done my apprenticeship with Holden, so you should have seen my dad's face.
I won't hold that against you, mate.
Pardon?
I won't hold that against you.
No, don't. I thought you were a Holden bloke, aren't you? Or...
Yeah, I'm a Holden guy.
I don't mind Holdens. I was there when it was like VE Series 1, Series 2. So that was like kind of my time working there. But I've always been into cars. I bought that when I was like 15. And then me and my dad just built it. Back then you could build a car for like, I think I spent like 12 grand on it. And 17 on my red P's, cruising out on a GT replica. It was pretty cool, man. 351, 4-speed top load, a 9-inch. It was awesome. We painted it. It came out really good. Haven't driven it in like 12 years, but
you can't beat 4 on the floor, mate. Like my first car was a HZ Ute. And it had a worked 253 in it, but it had an M21 gearbox, and you could smash through the gears. It was awesome.
Yeah, 253 is a fantastic motor, and the Ford 289, like those small cubes, but like high revving. Oh, they're the best, man. You don't need turbo, you don't need superchargers. Just like you said, just NA and cruising. They're the best. Yeah,
I like the sound of all of them. You can't like the naturally aspirated is friggin' awesome, but I've got a blown 430 in my shed.
That,
but mate, let's get off the cars because everyone's here to listen, talk about building. So how do you go from being a motor mechanic and into your cars to becoming a building designer?
So when I was younger, I remember like my mum was always like sitting on the couch drawing house plans because she always had wild ideas of like, you know, selling the house, buying it, doing this and that. And I used to just sit there and draw plans with her. And then I put that down and, you know, I grew up, got out of school, and I actually had an opportunity to do carpentry. So carpentry or mechanic. And I'm like, well, I like cars. And, you know, I thought that would be a really good idea. And then I'd done the 4 years there, and I just realized that light vehicle automotive mechanics, some make money, some don't. I was one that really didn't. I think I was pretty good at my job. I was a lot into, I was more so into like auto electrical diagnosis. So you know, cars these days are just, you know, body control modules, and it got very confusing. So I kind of specialise in diagnosis more so than mechanical repairs. And I think the most you got out of that was like, I remember finishing and it was like under $800 a week back then, like, you know, 12 years ago. And I was like, far out. That was, that's not really good.
It's a hard way to make a living.
It's weird because unless you own a garage and you're willing to do it that way, you can make some money that way. But then I just thought during my 4th year, instead of just sitting idle, what I'll do is I'll actually go study mechanical engineering because there's a Cert 4 in automotive mechanical, or you can do something else. And I thought, well, I'll go do something else and maybe I can get back into BHP or BlueScope or something, because I used to labour there outside of school. And I went and I'd done like all the mathematics courses, all that stuff that you needed. And I started to like mathematics. And if you saw me in high school, brother, I'm not that guy. You know what I mean? Not for maths. And I was doing like some really advanced mathematics. And I'm like, okay, well, when you got a good teacher and he's passionate and he wants to teach you, it's actually really easy to learn. So I started getting pretty decent at maths. And I managed to do that during my 4th year. So when I became a tradesman, I thought at least I've got something to fall back on. Finished the advanced diploma of mechanical engineering over the 5th year. And that's when I was just kind of, I went from there and I worked for a contractor for the military. So like as a civilian, but just on an army base, maintaining army equipment that, like, you know, stuff would come back from Afghanistan and Iraq, or they'd be stuffed. So just boats, marine, that kind of stuff would be like a trade repair coordinator and just organise maintenance. Yeah. And then from there, we started having kids, got married, built the first house, and then I just decided to do a diploma in building design to pick up where I went, because I've always liked it.
Yeah, so the passions come from a young age, like you had an interest in it.
It's interesting. I like it. It's cool to make little spaces. I used to build tree houses, and I'm 37. I know, like, you know, I don't think kids do that these days anymore, but we had a tree in the backyard. We'd be building stuff and with the neighbours' kids and all that. So I always like to do that kind of stuff. I think in hindsight, I probably would have taken the carpentry apprenticeship over the mechanic apprenticeship, because I think the cars is more of a hobby. I like doing that stuff on the side. I don't think, not to say I made a mistake, I'm happy where I am, but, you know, I could have been doing something else, which is never too late. But
you can't change what you've done, mate, so you just got to power on with where you are. But
yeah, exactly.
Like you're doing some pretty cool stuff now in the design space.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
And then you've got involved in the passive house stuff as well.
Yeah, which I from what I understand, you're a little bit on the fence about, but I think you're coming over a little bit to the...
Nah, no. Oh, look, I don't know. I'm sitting on the fence. I got some pretty strong opinions on the way some of this stuff's done, but
well, I'm not. I don't make people do passive house. You know, I always compare it to like trying to make people vegan. People just don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? So it's like, as soon as you try and convince someone to do something, their eyes just glaze over and they don't want to know. So I just try and encourage people to just do a bit better. And my clients, I really make sure that, like, they don't have to. If they don't want to do passive house, it's fine. But if we can just hit like 3 or 4 of the 5 key principles, that's you're in the top, you know, 1% of homes anyway once you do that. So because everything else is so shit, you don't have to do much to actually have a pretty good house.
Yeah, and that's where I sit, mate. Like, my passion is building really high quality homes, and now that I've learnt a lot more, like I've done the passive house course and I understand that, and the healthy home, I've done a couple of healthy home courses now. That's like, I just want to deliver my clients high quality healthy homes. Look, I don't know, like I've got some other podcasts coming up, but that whole, like the whole sustainability thing and passive house thing, and like I think there's a lot of words that are just used too much. It's like architecture. Like you have volume builders saying they're architectural builders.
Yeah.
And they're building boxes with a nice facade.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Everything's an architectural home now.
Yeah. I think there's horses for courses. Like the passive house. Like if I was living in a cold climate, I would probably be a lot more inclined to go down that path. My core values are like, I believe, like, we're humans. We need to take some responsibility. I don't feel that our houses, our cars, our technology should be doing everything for us. Like it's up to us to, I guess, if it's cold, put a jumper on. If it's hot, open some windows, get some ventilation. Like I think common sense is just completely thrown out the window, and so that's where I come from with all this sort of stuff. Like I don't believe we should be building houses to keep us comfortable, because if we're kept comfortable all the time, it ruins our immune system, and then we all end up sick more often because our bodies can't handle hot temperatures and cold temperatures and rainy weather because we live inside. And my other thing with it is, again, it comes back to us being humans. Like we need to feel the environment. We need to have fresh air. We need to walk on the ground bare feet. So I don't know. I got some pretty weird ideas when it comes to this.
I do that kind of stuff, but I like getting my feet in the grass and doing all that grounding stuff. That's all good. I'll pick you up on a thing that you said, how you're just saying that it was, if you lived in a cold climate, you'd probably consider it a little bit more. Yeah. Not to, throw anyone under the bus, but in Australia, like I hear that heaps, like passive house. And again, I'm not a passive house snob. Whatever you want to do, anyone can do it. But we get that common pushback of like, well, it's not cold, so we don't need to do that kind of stuff. But we've got the opposite problem in Australia. We've got heat. So as much as it does help in the cold, it also does, it's just as effective in the heat. Not to say it's a non-argument, but it does help a lot in the heat to keep that heat out. Like in my house now, this is a certified passive house plus, or hopefully, if I've done everything right. But in the mornings, like, it's toasty in here, it's beautiful. But even on those hot days, I'm pretty confident. I've had like my whole I haven't had my whole family in here yet, so we haven't loaded it up completely. But I don't think we're going to need air conditioning. Like when that western sun hits that side and loads up those rooms, nothing's coming through. Unless you're standing right at the window, nothing's coming through. I've got 40 mil wood fibre insulation board and then a 90 mil batt with that air cavity. So it's like, the lag time between there, it's what I'm trying to say is it's just as effective in heat. So that's why they're doing it in Iraq and in like the Middle East. Passive house is actually gaining traction there for the opposite problem. Yeah.
Look, I get all that. I know how it works. Like you obviously build an airtight home. It's a lot more efficient to control temperature and all those types of things. You don't have air leakage, and you're building with better materials, so your walls are more insulated and your windows obviously more insulated and all that type of stuff as well. But yeah, my own these are just my own personal opinions. Yeah. Like I believe me personally, it's harder to warm up in a cold climate. So if your house is more insulated and airtight, it's a lot easier to heat. Yeah. But for me, when it comes to a hot temperature, personally, I would rather have, and we work with quite a couple of architects and designers here in Brisbane that really focus on like shading and overhangs and orientation and positioning of windows and hallways to create natural breeze. Even if there's no breeze outside, like you can make a house circulate just by the way it's positioned and those types of things. And just what I've learnt and seen from being involved in those types of projects, that's how I feel I would rather do it. Because the other thing, and look, I know there's heaps of fantastic builders out there doing incredible things in the passive house space and designs and stuff. Like I'm not saying I'm against it. I don't know, it's my quirky ideas that I have on saving the planet and helping the planet. Like to me, a passive house takes so much more, like it's so much more material. So if you're using so much more material, there's so much more power going in and labour and everything to build that. So I know they say that a passive house reduces your energy bills and all these types of things, but I don't know. I go off in these crazy I go down these rabbit holes where I think, like, what about everything else? Like, what about everything it's taken to produce all those materials, all the labour along the way, all the transport along the way, like all those types of things.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think even I've taken steps towards like moving towards hemp buildings, like that kind of stuff. So basically, I don't think I'm ever going to do anything with steel frames. I'm virtually completely against them. I know some people want to make the argument, but physics is physics, man. They're just no good. So I throw them out the window pretty much. I'm all for timber because I know we can always just, plant more trees. The tree's there for 20, 30 years, creates a forest, we circulate it. That seems to work in my head. That seems logical. And it's a great material to work with. You can do a lot with it. The problem with Australia and not considering like blowing up the hemp industry, that's madness. Like, I don't understand.
I think hemp's fantastic, man. I can't believe we're not doing more like homework and studies to have more building products that are made of hemp. Like,
there's some fantastic, and if anyone's listening and they want to learn more about that, go on Facebook. There's some really good like hemp building groups. I've even joined them, and I put myself out there and I said, listen, I'm in Shell Harbour, New South Wales. I want to try and do some more stuff, and I've got a couple of people contacting me, like they're interested in doing it. So if anyone needs to promote hemp or learn more about it, there's really good Facebook groups.
And look, when I say, like, I'm not completely off the passive house thing. Like, I'm constantly looking at new products and those types of things. And when coming back to what I was saying before, like my genuine opinion is we've got to get more back to basics. And so from what I see at the moment, a lot of passive houses are taking up an enormous amount of materials, which, like I said, adds a lot of transport power to produce those materials, all those types of things. Like, I don't believe there's enough being done to use more natural products like rammed earth homes and hempcrete. Like, hemp can be used for so many different things. And like, I've seen it, there's people overseas doing incredible things with lightweight construction, hempcrete and hemp insulation. And I don't know. I think everyone's looking for a quick fix. And through looking for a quick fix, we end up just throwing all these things together. And I don't know, it really bugs me. Like, I'm really putting a lot of time and energy and effort into coming up with my own sort of
building system.
It's
a bit frustrating. I definitely share the frustration. I started building this home that I'm sitting in 2 years ago. We're like 90% finished, but sorry, my phone's ringing.
All good.
So I started building this 2 years ago, and I based it basically on I didn't want to scare people off. So I based it on a 90mm frame, so everyone can just see it come out of the ground and be like, okay, well, he's just putting 90mm frame, he's just wrapping it. And really, I didn't have to use wood fiber. You could probably use anything. If we were to redo the calculations now, I probably could get rid of maybe thicken up the wall a little bit, or I could have done something to maybe even get rid of the board outside. But I didn't want to scare anyone off. So basing it on that standard construction model, that's probably, in my opinion, the best way to start for people to kind of jump on board, so it's not too scary. If I just, if builders start thinking, oh my God, I've got to start using hempcrete, and like, people are going to freak out, you know what I mean? It's all about baby steps in this industry, and I think with people in general. So that was my rationale by making this house based on that 90mm timber frame. I will agree that there is more timber used. I think that's fair to say. And generally speaking, there would be more material used. But even speaking to like Anthony from Outlier down in Victoria, he's managing to do stuff. Well, you've already spoken to him, but you can see what he's doing.
I love what they do.
Yeah, he's a legend.
They're getting passive house. So between Anthony and then you've got David that's doing a lot of his builds. Like, they're coming up with some really great solutions, and they are minimising the product that they're using.
Yes, a lot. Yeah.
But look, mate, I think we're doing so many things wrong here in Australia. I feel our clients are making decisions based on real estate agents telling them that they need 4 bedrooms, 3 garages, 5 bathrooms, 50 living areas, and 500 downlights.
I've recently drawn and if my clients are listening to this, I love them. They're all good people, but they are big houses. And I say this during the concept meetings. I have to say, like, listen, this is a big house. What you're drawing here I know you want to maximize that FSR, but it's a big house. Like I'm doing 300 square meter houses like regularly.
Yeah. And mate, we are too. Like we've currently got a couple of houses that are 400 and 500 square meters, and
oh, that's wild.
I like over the next and look, to be fair, a couple of those are multi-generational. There's mum, dad, kids, and 2 lots of grandparents.
Oh, okay,
so
yep, that's fair enough.
It's a little bit okay. It's not fully okay.
It's not fully okay, but you could have the counter argument of like, yeah, but then they could build 3 houses and use even more resources. So generally speaking, you got to let some stuff slide. I think.
But I just think there's too. It's like every argument in the world. Like we can't have it both ways. Like so, yes. Like people keep banging on about this sustainability. I personally, I believe sustainability is the biggest con that the world will ever see. All this renewable energy.
Yeah, probably.
There's going to be some really big stuff come out over the next couple of years, I think, because anyway, that's another podcast. But if we really wanted to be actually more sustainable, we should be building far smaller homes. Like what happened to because if you have a smaller home, you can have more yard, and if you have more yard, kids can go outside, they can walk around bare feet, they can kick the soccer ball around the afternoon, they can go back to being children. To me, isn't that a more healthy, sustainable life?
Yeah, I can speak on that very recently. I had an experience. So we had to move out of our rental because this house, it's not ready yet. We're pretty close to getting in, but it's not ready yet. So my parents went overseas and we just ducked into their place for a couple of months because they weren't back. And going back to my childhood home of like, I don't know, man, like 150 square meters, maybe 3-bedroom, like an old Masterton. Like it's nothing amazing, but I live there. I'm pretty comfortable. Big backyard, and the block's only like 550 square meters. And I'm sitting there. I've got 3 kids. We're sitting outside. It's a sunny day. I'm under the patio like I used to sit, and I'm watching my kids play. And I said to my wife, we built the biggest house that we could have, and look at us. It's over budget. It's way too big for what we need. And now we don't have a backyard.
Why did you do that? What made you build a big house?
Just like what everyone else does it, Dwayne. It's the stupidity of trying to. Behind me, I've got a butler's pantry. I don't have a butler. You know what I mean? I'm not a butler. I can't call my wife a butler. She'll kill me. Why do I have a butler's pantry? Like that could have just been a row of joinery. But again, the houses that I'm drawing, that's standard, man. Like around here, Wollongong area, Illawarra, butler's pantries are like. For a lot of people that don't have butlers, there's a lot of butlers pantries. It's really bizarre. Yeah,
it's crazy, mate. Like, I just think we've all really lost touch. And the reality is, like, everyone's complaining that mum and dad are both working now, massive hours, life's hectic, we don't get time with our kids. And yet most of that is driven by us having houses that are far too big, that are wasting resources. And the reason we've got to work so much is to pay the bills to have the big house.
Yeah, exactly.
Which takes us away from spending time with our family.
Yeah, we're pretty traditional in my household. So my wife is actually staying home for the last 7 years looking after the kids. It's, in my opinion, each to their own. If you want to drop them off at daycare, whatever you got to do, make it work, do it. But in my place, she's looking after kids because we believe that she's the best person to do so. And so far, it's working. They're really good, well-behaved kids. But financially, it's a struggle because there's a lot of pressure on me to, come up with the money while I'm building a bloody house. Like, it's a mission, Yeah. So I completely agree with what you're saying. If we built a smaller house, it would have been done sooner, for cheaper. We could have just got on with our lives and, still
but everyone, like, Instagram's terrible for this, mate. Everyone wants bigger is better. Like, everyone thinks that, oh, look at what they've got. Oh, I need to have that. Like, who gives a fuck if you got 3 living rooms or 5 bathrooms or 3 garages? I know.
Like, I feel guilty now that I've got 2 garages, 2 living areas. The last house that we built, so I've actually owned a built previously, and that one there I'm embarrassed of it. Like, that's 3 living areas, a balcony that I never sat on, absolutely useless. And I've learnt a lot of lessons throughout all these homes. Then especially building my own home, like I don't know how much I've shared with you, but I've pretty much only had a plumber, a sparky, a plasterer. So there hasn't been much input externally from this house. I've done a lot of it myself. And I've learnt a lot. And the lessons that I take away is that, being this close to almost finished, you don't really need a big house like this. If you just, like, I always get clients, I'll try and talk them out of doing a big house. Sometimes it's like pushing shit uphill, other times they listen. But then when that initial quote comes back, and I know it's overpriced, I know it's going to be over budget, because like I work off about $4,000 a square metre. I don't know what you do up in Brisbane, but around here,
we avoid square metre rates.
So do I. But as a designer, I need something. Do you know what I mean? And then at least while I'm doing the lines, and then I can ring up the builder and we can work through it together. But I need something to go by. So I've looking at other houses that I've done to those specs. So I just kind of gauge that out.
So do you go back to completed projects and see what the final cost is, and then divide it by the square meters and say, oh well, that one there was 4,200, that one there was 5,600.
Roughly speaking, it's a super lame way to do it. But
it's better. It's
better
like
than
getting the data from the completed projects is the first step in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that it does help, and at least I know, like when I'm playing with the 3D model, I'm doing like ground floor plans. What I do is I usually set up a zone in my program that's square meters, and then I can manipulate that to fit within that box, and then I know at least this will cost roughly X amount. Let's talk to the builder. Which that was a very expensive lesson for me to learn. I never used to do that, and I could tell you about some jobs that just went to absolute shit, unfortunately. So there's lessons learned there. But yeah, what I was getting back to is just designing. Not going for the biggest house you can do, but just like designing a slightly smaller home and then taking that extra budget or headway and improving the building, both lifestyle and especially comfort. Because I always think if you address comfort, if occupant comfort is like the number one priority, typically that solves all the other problems. Like you end up with a more durable house, a better well-built house. It's a lot more comfortable. That's my main kind of driving point. I really try and get that home with the clients, but then there are those clients that I've dealt with that they just like stone bench tops and stuff like that, and it's this balancing game. I've only ever had one client, and unfortunately she had to pull the pin because of some private issues, but she was actually a listener of Amelia, and I kind of picked up on it because we're talking. I go, I bet you this chick, she must listen to Amelia, because the stuff that she's saying is really like too good to be true. Like, calm down, And I asked her, I go, do you listen to a podcast called Get It Right? She was like, oh yeah, Amelia Lee, blah blah. She knew all the podcasts, this and that, because I was going to send her something about kitchen sinks in island bench tops. We were talking about it, and I know Amelia's got a strong opinion of that. And she goes, I've heard it, I already know all this, that, blah, blah, blah. And she's probably the only client that was willing to like really commit to occupant comfort, because I had explained to her that it'll fix everything else. Like everything else will just kind of fall into place. The only question from there is whether you want to go down a sustainable path. So if they do want to go down a sustainable path, in my opinion, currently in this climate, it probably will cost a bit more, just because we don't have I can't just go Bunnings and get some hemp block or stuff like that. So there's none of that stuff readily available. It's getting better.
Yeah. You've reached out, I think, to a couple of Live Life Build builders down your way, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
And do the back process.
Yeah, I work with 2 or 3 of them. We're actually having dinner tonight. We're all going to catch up down at the golf club for a schnitzel. But that's really helped. So I don't work for builders now that don't pay to quote. At the very minimum, they have to have some skin in the game. So
be paid as a consultant, mate. We're not charging a quote. We're getting paid as a consultant.
That's ideal. Obviously, the pack process guys, they're all switched on, and they've got that. But as a minimum, like I've got a project now that actually no, that one's done. The
only way to do it properly is, mate, with Live Life Build's pack process.
Sponsored.
No, mate, it is like the paid as a consultant. It's an absolute game changer. We got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of builders all across Australia, New Zealand. Even got one in the States.
Oh, really? That's good.
Like it's definitely changing the way the industry operates. But
yeah, I agree. I think it works well. I'm working with Ryan now from Lockspec through a renovation, and that's actually a good example how just some components fell apart, but then once a builder came in with the pack process, it seems to be running a lot smoother now. We had 2 or 3 builders that were just and ahhing pretty much, and unfortunately, it fell through a number of times.
Yeah.
So Ryan seems to have a good bearing on it now. He's obviously got some good systems behind him. So
mate, you had a few questions you wanted to get through, so I'm happy to jump into them because I'm happy to put our opinions out there.
Yeah. The main one was, I don't know if you've heard about it, but the federal government is proposing 1.2 million houses in 5 years, and I'm a bit of a skeptic on it. I think even once you run the numbers, it's virtually impossible. But
yeah,
I'm happy to be proven wrong.
Look, I think it's completely impossible to get. They might achieve it, but they'll be.
You reckon?
Fucking shit boxes that are built to last 15 years.
Yeah.
You
reckon it can be done? I don't even think it can be done. I don't even think they'll fit. I don't even think they'll hit 500,000. Even if they're shit, I don't even think it.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Like there's a couple of the better volume builders that have geared up and are smashing out some pretty good numbers. But my problem with all that, like they don't understand our industry. So when they come up with all these figures,
yeah,
they have no idea how a building business operates. They have no idea on the true costs. Like everyone just keeps talking about the cost of building, and yet no one's talking about, like I bang on about all the time, like expectations. Like expectations are rising far quicker than what cost of building are. And yeah, they just come out with these figures and say, oh, we're going to build this many houses in this amount of time, like with no consideration into supply chains and quality of building and the businesses that operate in the industry and how many people are going to go bankrupt because they're just going to take on more work and all those types of things. Like, it's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and I don't want to be negative about it. Like it would be great if they could do it, but yeah, it's just impossible. I can't see it happening, man. It's going to be a disaster.
Yeah. Oh, it will be, no doubt. It'll be an absolute disaster. They'll come out with some scheme that'll give somebody some sort of compensation, or like they did with the first homeowners grant, and the grants through COVID. Like we all know how many businesses, tradies, and builders went broke.
Yeah, it didn't help at all. I thought when they were releasing that $25,000 or whatever it was, I thought, oh man, this is going to put so much pressure on people, and it did. It broke it.
It did, mate. You've still got builders and tradies now that are playing catch up. The ones that have managed to scrape through and haven't gone bankrupt, because it just put all that added pressure on, and then obviously all the price increases went through the roof, and you had all these clowns signing contracts that weren't running profitable businesses anyway, signing contracts for, like, even some of the big players, but he got caught out with the cost increases and those types of things. But
well, I think if they're going to do it, again, like I've done a house with SIPs before, so I designed a SIPs house. Again, I know it's, EPS. It's not great for the environment. It's a petrochemical product, but SIPs. I can't see them doing it any other way without SIPs.
Mate, prefabricated and transportable buildings are the way of the future.
Yeah, it's just so hard to sell, isn't it? When I tell someone to like look at SIPs or something, it's like, I've just told them that we didn't land on the moon or something. It's like, calm down. It's just a normal building system.
But again, I don't believe, like a lot of the ones doing it at the moment, I don't agree with the materials they're using. I think they're just causing more harm to the environment than they are good. But I think that is the solution. Like Europe, look how good Europe and China.
I know.
Like they have some incredible timber products that are just, they smash out the buildings and even high-rise buildings and stuff. So
yeah, people think China's killing it, man. They're killing. I actually saw a product, a Chinese HRV with integrated air conditioning. Yeah. Which I know there's people out there that don't like mixing those two systems for good reason as well. But I just thought that, I go, far out, that's actually, at least they're thinking about it. But China's killing it. The SIPs that I done on that house were actually from China. And unfortunately, again, I don't think we're doing anything like that full scale.
No, I think there's some really good solutions that'll come out in the near future for prefabricated homes. We're definitely working on something behind the scenes in that space.
Good to hear.
Tying a few things together that we believe in pretty strongly. But I know you're really big on, you've sent me a couple of messages through Instagram or shared some stories with me on houses that are getting demolished and stuff. And
oh, bro, remember that one I sent you? It looked like, what, 3 years old? And I'm like, can we at least take the doors off? I was like, can we do something to... And this wrecker just came in and just chomp, and you're like, what are we doing? Like, even around where I'm living, I'm sure it's the same where you are too, there's houses that are like, they were only built like, what, 10 years ago? they're gone.
Yeah.
I drove past one the other day. That's not that old, and that was like a double brick house. Even that's another crazy thing. I'm seeing people building double brick now, and I'm just like, what is it, Western Australia or something? Like, it's really the industry's wild, man. It's such a wild.
Well, this is the thing. Like they bring these numbers out. They want to build 1.2 million homes or whatever it is. Like, and this is my biggest problem, mate. Like, everyone bangs on about sustainability and helping the planet.
Yeah.
And yet we have volume builders building tens of thousands of homes a year that are designed to last 15 to 30 years.
It's wild, eh?
So how the hell is that sustainable when in 15 to 30 years, those houses are going to be put on a truck and tipped in a hole in the ground and buried?
I know. And then I think the average Australian is living in their home for like 7.5 years, and they just hop on. Which
it's pathetic. Like, at the end of the day, it's absolutely pathetic. Like, if the government and homeowners really wanted to help this planet out, we would be reducing the size of the buildings we're building. We'd be using products that are genuinely sustainably sourced and 100% recyclable at their end use. Like, it's not rocket science.
No, it's not. I know. Just getting people to change. It's so, like, I adopted Passive House, like 5 years ago, and people thought I was pretty wild. You know what I mean? Like, people thought it was pretty crazy. And I remember telling my friend, that friend I was telling you about that moved to Brisbane? I love him. I love him like a brother. And I remember him, like, early on, I was just like, we're doing this, doing that. Him and his boss, old school builders, they thought it was pretty different. But Michael, he's coming around to, you can tell there's something there. And then a couple of months ago, he went and done his Passive House course. So after 5 years, and he's building his own house in Brisbane, and it's going to be a quote unquote high performing home. So it came around full circle, like the penny dropped. And speaking to local builders around here, I remember saying to a couple of them, like, what you're doing now, in 10 years, you're not going to be able to do that, or no one's going to want it. That's what's going to happen. And it's really bizarre. Like, there are certain things, like, I suppose certain states are cutting gas to, like, new buildings. That's always a good thing. I think gas is a rort, especially in Australia. And there are steps to improve the system, but God, it could be so much better if we all just.
So, mate, what do you think of the new 7 stars?
Well, my Passive House Plus got a 7.4 on the old system, so it might be an 8 now. I don't know. And to me, that's just crazy. Like, that doesn't make sense. Do you know what I mean? And he tried to get it up there, and it passes this, like, good level of Passive House, and to me, that just shows an obvious kind of bias there. Like, the reason why, again, I'm not a Passive House snob, but you got to give them credit, because it's just a bunch of nerds just working on a spreadsheet. They don't care about politics or nothing. Whereas with NatHers and Basics, you can't trust that shit. It's politically driven. I have no evidence to back this up, but I'll put this house on it, that there's some type of lobbying going on from developers, from who else would be in there? Building associations, maybe, from volume builders. They all want to keep it down to a low standard. It's obvious they want to.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Thank you for agreeing with me, because I think it's super obvious. And
well, mate, if you've had to go to a Passive House Plus to get a 7.4, how the hell is a volume builder going to achieve a 7-star rating?
Yeah, exactly right. And my energy assessor that does NatHers, because I personally don't do them. I'll just get someone else to do it, because, again, I think they're virtually a useless tool. They're a box tick.
Exactly, 100%.
He done. What did he do? He done between the old system and the new system. So obviously you're just trying to satisfy an algorithm, pretty much. He ran the same house through, and it wasn't. It was like the algorithm just made it pop up, but it was virtually the same house. Like, nothing really changed. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It should have still been a 6, if that makes sense. Yeah. So when I hear stuff like that, I'm going, well, I know there's people in the NatHers community. I think they've even got someone in that is Passive House trained trying to. I feel sorry for whoever that is, because that person's pushing shit uphill and trying to get through all the bureaucracy. But yeah, I just think it's wild, man. I think it's got a political bias, whereas I know Passive House, they're just a bunch of nerds that just want to. These are the rules of physics. You cannot change them, because that's just how the universe works.
And there's other things out there, like I don't know the holes in the ins and outs of it, but like you got the is the Powerhouse app as well. Like they do the energy ratings and stuff. Like there's companies out there that are doing, like we try and talk all of our clients into spending some proper money and getting an actual proper assessment done.
Yes,
because the standard tick and flick boxing is like that model's been broken. It doesn't matter what rating they're trying to get, whether it's the old rating or the new 7 stars. That whole system is completely broken.
Well, everyone around here, they're all freaking out about using double glazed windows, but I got ahead of the curve years ago. Like that's standard. We're developing just for my company. I'm developing like a David Belle kind of standard construction package that we use.
Yeah.
And we're not doing anything crazy. If anyone's listening at home and they just want to make their house better, or a builder wants to do better, if the insulation should be installed correctly anyway. So just do it properly, watch the guy that does it, or do it yourself, and just don't leave any gaps. That's basically it. Thermal bridging, in my opinion, it's great if you can get rid of it. Try and substitute for timber. If you can't, try your best and just live with it, but 9 times out of 10 it should be fine. And if you can just glaze, work on your air tightness, if you can get around...
But with the double glazing, mate, like double glazing... Like my problem with all this double and triple glazing stuff is you can't just have a house and throw double glazing everywhere. It might work in some areas, but like I know up here, like we've done houses up here, like, and you might, when you do a proper assessment, single glazing might actually work on one wall of the house or 2 walls of the house, and then the other walls of the house, depending on overhangs and orientation, all those types of things, they may need double glazing. So
I'm more of like, I'm personally more just double glazed everywhere, but I'm only saying that because I know that I can get UPVC windows virtually at the same cost these days. Like they're coming down so much in my area. Like I can get them from Sydney pretty cost effectively. So picking and choosing glazing, I suppose, man, I'm not sure. I think that air gap, like, there's a lot of physics going on between calculating that air gap and having 2 panes of glass and certain thicknesses. So I think personally I would just double glaze everywhere. Triple in Australia is like, it's obviously the duck's nuts, but in most climates in Australia, it's probably not necessary. And you have to remember that we live in a country where it's so easy to build a high performing home or a better build or whatever you want to label it as. Yeah. Because we've got such a forgiving climate.
Yeah. Because I forget when it was, 2012, 2014 or something. Like we had a client that we'd been working with for a long time, 4 or 5 years. When the first thing the client said when they come to us is, we want to win every award we can for a sustainable, energy efficient home.
Yeah, right.
And so they were 2 doctors. They had done, like, mate, they came to us with mountains of paperwork and products that they wanted to use. So the designer designed the home, and look, thinking back at it now, it was quite bad. It was I think it was 640 square meters for 2 houses and 4 cats, 2 people and 4 cats. But anyway, long story short, they had researched around the world. They had found all these windows, insulation, claddings, wall wraps, like you name it. And so the designer had gone ahead and listed all these products and done all the sections through the walls and showed all the cavity battens and all this. And this is back, I'm talking 10, 12 years ago, before I even started understanding all this wraps and cavity battens and things. Anyway, at the time, I knew a bloke quite well. He's actually retired now, doesn't do it anymore, but he was probably, one of the only ones up here in Brisbane that was doing proper modelling, but he was doing it on commercial and high-rise. Anyway, I talked these people into spending some money with him and doing proper modelling on the home. And look, I'm not up to speed with what the software was or how it works, whatever, but basically it ended up dragging out over a few months. We had to change a lot of sections, and they put it in this program, and it modelled the home over a 2-year period, and basically come back and said, hey, you need to throw 90% of all that shit that you've researched and found out in the bin, because number one, it doesn't work for this climate. And basically they come back with all this feedback and said, you actually need to shorten the overhang on that side of the house, increase the overhang on that side of the house. It had a big clear story sort of void through the centre of the house that was for a lift and a stairwell. It was 3 stories high. And we ended up putting electric operated operable louvers in the top of that, and we ended up creating, because this guy had come from high-rise and commercial stuff, like we basically designed a mechanical ventilation system, and the window, like the house had temperature system sensors in it, and the house evened the temperature out. So, because 9 times out of 10, you'll find when a house is built, you would know all this, like when a house is built really well, and like if it traps temperature in, it can actually get too warm inside and can actually be cooler outside, and vice versa. Like sometimes in winter, you want to bring some warm air into the house or like warm air in, cool air out, and those types of things. And we ended up, he designed this system that it naturally leveled the temperature out.
Yeah, but and naturally, not a HRV or anything, but just measuring the inside and outside and mixing.
Yeah, and then when the house got to a level temperature, if it was in summer and the level temperature was still too warm, the system would automatically turn the system off, shut the windows, and turn the aircon on. And then in winter, same deal. If the house, the natural level temperature was still too cold, same deal. It would shut the windows up and turn the heater on.
Yeah, okay. And well, that's a lot of automation in that.
It was hugely automated. It was a lot of cost, but we ended up winning Master Builder's Sustainable House of the Year award for that home. And that's sort of where my taste for this sort of stuff started, because like that, it was crazy, mate. These people wanted to do, I forget the name of it now, they wanted to drill the cores down in the earth, bloody 180, 200 metres, and what is it, thermal? Oh,
yeah. Heaps of people want to do, even around here, they want to do geothermal and...
Yeah, geothermal, that's it.
Yeah, it's cool. I like it, but it's super unnecessary where we live. I think maybe a lot of people have it in the Highlands where I live. It's common up there, but it's because they got cold houses. I was doing a house project in Bowral, and they wanted geothermal, and I said, listen, the way that we're designing the house, it's kind of unnecessary. It's redundant. Like you got a $60,000 bill for a geothermal system. Yeah, you don't need it. Like it's
and that was the thing. Like basically, by the time like I said, it ended up adding 6 or 8 months to the project because there was all this backwards and forwards with all this modelling. But in the end, we threw 90% of the products these clients wanted out the window. This company proved to them that they didn't need any of it. We solved a lot of their problems that they're trying to do with this ventilation system and automating the windows and stuff. And then we basically ended up with a good building wrap, a cavity batten, and good insulation and good cladding.
A simpler approach basically solved the problem. Yeah, it's interesting when that happens. I'm guilty of it too. I thought like, passive house, I've got to go really crazy. And I started drawing 100 mil XPS under the slab and this and that. And I'm like, once you use the PHPP and you can be like, okay, well, you can value engineer and say, well, you don't need 100 mil because that's a waste of time. I went with 50 mil. I originally had a 60 mil wood fiber board on the outside of my house. I went to a 40 because once you do the modeling, it's kind of like this. What is it? It's like a point of no return. I don't know the term for it, but it just the thicker it got, the less it did basically. So I found that sweet spot of 40, and I'm like, oh well, that gets me to where I want to go. So let's just leave it at that. I think that there's a lot of value in using services like that and tools like that. But to say that Nathurst is the tool to do that, I don't know, man. Personally, I'd stick to the unbiased, non-politically driven tools.
Yeah.
And just listen to the nerds and the geeks that don't care about what the politicians say, basically.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate. You need to pay money and work with good quality consultants that can do all the testing properly and not just rely on ticking boxes.
Yeah, I agree, definitely.
So, mate, what's David Belle, like what's the plans for David Belle? So you're aiming at high performance homes?
Yeah, so I just want to do better than standard. I know people call them high performance homes. They're it's kind of just the house that's built how it's meant to be built, really. But anything better than standard, those things that I listed before, mainly as long as we got like HRV, we're working on our air tightness and the glazing's good. Really that gets you 80, 90% of the way there. The things that I find challenging is like getting people to reconsider fireplaces and stuff like that, like really romantic things. The butler's pantry. Do you really need a massive ensuite that's just as big as the bathroom, or can we not have an ensuite, or can we those conversations I'm finding it hard at the moment. But I think I'm getting there. I think it's just more about picking the right person to work with as well.
So how are you maintaining that standard? Like that's your standard too as a building designer, but how are you doing site checks or weekly meetings with your clients?
Yeah, for sure. So I've got a 5-step program. The first is like design brief feasibility. We'll go through basically what they want to do and if they can do it. Step 2 is all concept stuff. So that's all the fun stuff where we're drafting 3D models, chatting with builders, consultants. 3 is, we call it a DA. I don't know what you call it in, like going to council or gaining approval. So that's pretty boring. That doesn't really involve anyone but myself. And then, again, we jump in with the construction stuff, stage 4, where that's where we'll get all the information we got, put it on the plans. If it's the floor system, I model that in. It's all basically built before we built it in 3D with the builder providing feedback and costing as we go, kind of tying into your philosophy. And then the stage 5, that's there to kind of represent the client. And that's where we do our site meetings, and I make myself available just to, because people don't know what they're looking at, man. The builders that I recommend to people, I've got like 5 builders. I go, these are the people that I think are good for you. They pick it and interview them. I encourage that. You don't have to worry too much because those guys are good. And I think it's good that I've aligned myself with like-minded people, so we work with like-minded people. If you're a designer and you're just kind of throwing your hat out in the ring, you're going to get everything, man. Everything's going to come in. Like, you're going to get first home buyers to people that it's their 3rd house. And that's okay. First home buyers need houses too. But that's where you find typically the most undecisiveness, the most problems throughout the process. Whereas the people that are like, I would argue 38 onwards, 40, they've had some kids, it might be their 3rd house or 2nd house or something.
It's the most valuable thing in business, isn't it? Figuring out who your ideal client is.
Exactly. And I don't want to shit on people and say like young people don't know what they're talking about, but when I was young, I didn't know what I was talking about. So I'm happy saying it. It's just, it is what it is. It's hard. And that those people and a lot of people in general, when you and me start talking and we're on a site meeting and they don't know that, what would be an example? Like the frames are a bit out or dodgy or something like that. I'd be like, I'll have a chat and say like, maybe we can do this and that. And that's just for that kind of reassurance for the client pretty much. So there is that as well. But if the builder is more than capable and the client has an understanding, I can adapt my service to be like, well, if you just want me to rock up once a month or something, or maybe help problem solve if there's an issue, that's fine too. I don't have to have my nose in everything. But I generally go because I'm a bit of a nerd and I like to see progress as well.
Oh, mate, I think it's such a powerful thing when you when designers and architects are interacting with the build team once a project starts, like having regular meetings and just...
it's the best.
Well, there's so many things. It doesn't matter how detailed your drawings are. There are so many things that come up on site. It could be the way the stack work's got to be worked for a bathroom above and it affects the ceiling heights or like, who knows? But when you have those regular site meetings, like I know me going to design meetings has made me a lot better builder. And I know that the designers and architects coming to our sites and understanding how we build things is making them better designers and architects because we're collaborating, we're helping each other out.
It's hard when like architects, they like, you see plans come and go, people send you plans here and there, whatever. You see some plans and you're like that's going to be a pretty complicated way to do something. Like no one's really thought that through. Do you know what I mean? Whereas like, because I've had this experience, I've always been pretty handy. Just the other week, I was helping someone stand frames, a builder, a mate of mine. I went there for like 2-3 days. And we were standing frames, and I love that kind of stuff. And it's good to know, like it's good to have that practical experience, man, because I know as I'm designing, like everything is 3D modeled, but when I place a beam somewhere, I know like that's going to be the biggest pain in the ass because it was a pain in the ass for me. And there's a roll-on effect. If something is a pain in the ass, it's just going to be a variation somewhere. So if you can kind of stop that in its tracks or catch it early, it's kind of saves so much hassle, man. Especially
mate, what's your we'll have to start wrapping it up. Like, what's your, I think we pretty much got through all your topics here. You wanted to do you want to check there? You got a list of questions?
Oh yeah, I don't think we have to go on the Building Code of Australia. I think you and I can just have a blanket statement of saying that it's cooked, and we'll just move on from that.
Well, mate, one thing I will say, I'm a huge advocate for the Tools app. Like, I don't know if you've seen it, but I am telling everybody to get on board with the Tools app. It is easy to understand. Check it out, mate. Tools app.
That's that app. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Actually, they kind of picturise the.
Yeah.
Yes, that is.
It's freaking awesome, mate. I got my whole, like, I got all my lead carpenters, my supervisor on it. I'm on it.
Those guys, it's so funny that those guys are doing what the government should have done. It's really crazy, but good on them. Yeah, they're doing the God's work, I reckon.
Yeah, we've got Jerry coming on the podcast in a couple of weeks' time, so fantastic. I'm really looking forward to that.
They're doing really good stuff. I actually I should subscribe to that when I ramp up the business back after this house. I just got to finish this bloody house, man. I say to my mates all the time, like, the guys that go to dinner with the builders, being a builder, your job is like, it's psycho. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy to take someone else's money and to try and make that last I can't even put into words. Like, after this is my own money, what I'm playing with here, to do it with someone else's, I'd be in panic attack. You'd have to be...
Mate, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Like, builders and trades, people, unless you have done it, like, honestly, people do not, like, you can't explain it. It doesn't matter how much you try and tell someone what's involved, how much time it takes, how stressful it is, how many things you got to, how much you got to organise, how much responsibility you have. Like, they don't get it. Like, but,
it's a mission. You have to be a brave person, I think.
Mate, you, before we started recording today, you mentioned you wanted to, discuss your ideal home. Tell us what your ideal home is.
Oh, the building. I'm leaning towards, it would probably be like a timber framed house, more like traditional framed with a hemp core. And then that would be like a lime render on the inside or the outside. Or I would, if we're not talking about like embodied energy, I'd probably go like a CLT with like a wood fibre on the outside. That would be, to me, the ultimate, because then... And suspended floor system, no concrete. Some type of suspended floor where you can get underneath, you can seal your penetrations good. That to me is like the gold standard if I had to pick. I brought that up before because I was just curious to see what you would say. I feel like it might be similar. I don't know.
I think it is fairly similar, but mate, I'm going to throw something out there now and everyone's going to think I'm an absolute fucking weirdo, but... The deeper I dig on my own personal journey to figure out what sustainability is and what I need to be delivering and building, like, I'm not I don't even know the word for it, but I'm not a religious person. I've never been to church, all that type of thing. But I am going down this path at the moment that I believe every single thing on this planet is here for a reason. Like, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that every animal, every living thing, every tree has been designed and put here for a reason. And timber is here to be used to build things. Yeah. And
timber's the best.
That is the most sustainable material.
Yeah. As it currently stands, it is. Like, anything that grows out of the ground in a plant form, in my opinion, hemp.
Mate, it grows in the ground. It filters the air while it's growing.
Yeah, I know.
it filters this, like, it improves the condition of the soil. Like, yeah. And then we cut it down, we use it. Yes, people are going to argue, like, not a lot of the log goes to timber and a lot of it goes to pulp and sawdust and all that sort of thing, but that's its purpose. Like, trees were... Anyway, I am doing a lot of work on that at the moment because I want to know more about it. But my ideal house, mate, is pretty similar to yours. Like, and so... I've talked about it a little bit on the podcast. Like, one of our purposes of buying our farm is because I want to demonstrate to people. So, like, we're very close to getting our DA at the moment. We're getting an approval for a ecotourism resort.
Oh, sick.
It's only getting classed as a resort because it's going to have up to 16 dwellings on it. But basically, those small... my wife and I are working with like a few different designers and architects because I want to demonstrate to people that smaller is better, that less is more, and we need to disconnect to reconnect. And so every single one of those cabins is going to be differently designed, but they're going to be small. They're going to be able to sleep up to 6 people. They're going to be multi-purpose. They're going to be, like you said, they're going to be up off the ground. Yeah. We're going to use a heap of recycled materials. And yeah, that's my ideal building.
Yeah,
like
right.
a place where you can feel comfortable, a place where you can touch and feel natural products, and a place where you can look around what you're living in and know that at its end life, it can be used again.
Yeah, exactly. Or at the very least, go into the ground just as it came out. That's why, you know, hemp and lime, they're God's gift in building materials. I don't know why. I was actually looking into why brickies don't use lime mortar anymore. I know they put lime in it, but it's not solely lime. They obviously add cement. And I think it was the capacity of the mortar, or the strength of it, can only go to like 2 or 3 stories, I think.
Mate, they used to build chimneys friggin' 100-foot high
just
using
lime mortar. Yeah, right. I'm curious. I'd love to know why. I probably should ask some brickies, but
I can't remember his name. Shay, what was that guy we were trying to get on the podcast from Adelaide? There's a guy in Adelaide that I love him. He does these random posts and he just whinges about terribly designed buildings, and he does lots of posts on old buildings, and he talks a lot about bricks and lime mortar and why we don't use it.
Yeah, okay, I'll check him out.
But mate, look, I really appreciate your time and jumping on, and yeah, let's keep the conversation going through Instagram.
No worries. I tried to get up there, man. I got 3 kids, so I can't step out. But I really wanted to check out the shed. So
it's all good, mate. We'll have to do a round 2.
Yeah, one day I'll get up there and visit my mate in Brisbane, and I'll catch up with you.
Yeah, no, for sure, mate. But look, everybody, if you enjoy the podcast, and look, we're on a mission to make this podcast Australia's #1 construction podcast. So make sure you like and subscribe. And look, if you haven't heard yet, we now have the DUAYNEPearce.com website. Everyone's been asking for the Level Up merchandise. If you go to the new website, check it out, go to the merch page. Please sign up, grab some merch, and support our mission to create a new building industry.
Are you ready to build smarter, live better, and enjoy life? Then head over to livelifebuild.com/elevate to get started.
Everything discussed during the Level Up podcast with me, Dwayne Pearce, is based solely on my own personal experiences and those experiences of my guests. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. We recommend that you obtain your own professional advice in respect to the topics discussed during this podcast.